So a week after Russia and the phone call, of course, we have Boston and Montreal playing against each other. We know from the commentary that Montreal is just holding on to a wild card spot. Now, if you don't follow hockey outside of Heated Rivalry, or this is your first experience with it, the way that the playoffs work is that we have a scoring system that goes throughout the entirety of the season. We operate on a 2-1-0 point system. And what that means is that for every game in the 82 game season, every team receives 2 points for every game they win, whether that's in regulation or in overtime, 1 point for every game that they lose in overtime or a shootout, and 0 points for any game that they lose in regulation. With those points all added up, we then rank all of the teams, but we rank them in 2 different ways. The NHL is broken into 2 different conferences, the Eastern and the Western Conference. There are 16 teams in each of those conferences, and inside each of those conferences are 2 divisions of 8 teams each. When it comes to making the playoffs, the top 3 teams in every division automatically make the playoffs, and that's based off of that ranking based on your score throughout the season. And then we have what's called the wild card. There are 2 wild card spots available in both conferences. However, those wild card spots are not determined just based on your division, but conferences as a whole. So in order to get one of those wild card spots, we remove the 6 teams from the rankings that are making it into the playoffs based off of their division rankings. And then we compare the scores of the rest of the teams left in the conference regardless of division, and the 2 best teams of those rankings move into the wild card position. Once the season's over, whoever is in the top 3 positions in their division or manages to take one of those wild card spots in their conference go into the final bracket for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And the bracket is made within their conference, with the best of the East ultimately playing the best of the West for the Stanley Cup. Which is why when we talk about these teams and the way that the rivalry would work with Boston and Montreal, the fact that they are in the same division means that they are constantly fighting against each other for those rankings, and then they also would never be able to play each other in a Stanley Cup final. They would only either knock each other out of the playoffs based off of rankings like we would be talking about here, or they would potentially play against each other and knock each other out of the playoffs based off of the bracket, or someone else before them might knock them out so that they didn't actually have to meet. But constantly, these teams would be keeping each other out of the Stanley Cup finals in some way or another. So when we hear that the Metros are clinging on to a wild card spot, it means that Boston has had a better season than they have, and that they are on the brink of not making the playoffs. So if Boston beats them tonight, it really could affect their ability to even make it into the playoffs at all.